Chapter 58, September 2003. It was a Friday night, and we had just finished playing a gig at the VFW in Greenville. David had ridden with Rick and Carol. Kevin had already left with a friend of his. I was angry that he hung around with his friend rather than me, and I didn't have a boyfriend to hang out with. A lot of the other girls had boyfriends, and Kevin had other friends, guys and girls, besides me and the band. It irked me that he could get along with anyone and I couldn't. Rick and Carol had other friends. David sometimes hung around his cousins from Greenville, but he didn't have any other real friends except for us. I only had the band as friends. And now there was this stranger dude helping me to load up my drum set on the back of my dad's truck, even though I hadn't asked him to. Daddy had allowed me to drive to Greenville even though I didn't have my driver's license yet. He'd been kind of miffed at me for some other things I'd not done at home, and he just told me to leave and go to my gig, so maybe I'd taken that as I could drive. Yeah, parents, who knew? Like I was saying, we could go to a movie tomorrow night, the guy said to me as he closed the tailgate to the truck. He wasn't a bad-looking guy. He was maybe 5'10", brown hair, average build, no cowboy boots, no vest, kind of pushy. He tried to talk to me before the show, but I was busy setting up. Then during our break, but several other older groupie guys were vying for my attention, and now he was following me around. "And how old are you, man?" I asked him wearily. "Old guys have been hitting on me all my life." 23. I turned around and blinked at him as if he were the stupidest guy on earth. "I'm only 15, so no way," I replied. "But you're driving." "You have to be at least 16, he argued. I saw David approaching from behind the guy. "Yeah, well, my dad is probably going to whip my ass when I get home for taking his truck and driving without a license." David chuckled. "You're such a badass pumpkin." "Shut up. Don't call me pumpkin. That's Daddy's name for me. You'll ruin the purity of it," I snarled back. He and Kevin had heard some of the pet names my dad called me, and every now and then they'd tease me. The guy quickly turned around, surprised at David walking up behind him. "Did the others leave and not say one damn thing to me?" I asked angrily. I was angry at them too for different reasons. "They didn't say one fucking word to me either, and now I'm stuck without a ride. Fucking so-called friends. Can I bum a ride home?" he replied as he turned angry too. "I really do want to go out with you. What do you say?" the guy continued. David brought his attention to him. "Give it up, man. She's too damn young for you, and her dad would kill you if you laid a hand on her. After he shakes your hand, he'll tell you how good a shot he is with his gun, and how many shooting contests he's won." I nodded in agreement. I didn't want to go out with any old guy. I huffed to myself thinking about it. Why did all these old men want to go out with me? I knew I didn't look that old, or maybe I did. I was going to have to. "I asked you a question," David remarked as he poked me in the shoulder. "Billy, my name's Billy. Here's my number in case you change your mind," the guy said as he handed me a small piece of crumpled paper. I took it and glanced at it. He looked at me one last time, then walked away. "What?" I asked David in irritation as I stuffed the crumpled paper into his hand. I would never call that dude. Why did everyone have to be on my case? "I need a ride," David replied as he absent-mindedly put the paper in his pocket. I rolled my eyes at him. The parking lot was lit, but it was still dark as it was past 11 p.m. "Did you fucking think that I was going to say no? I'm so sure my conscience would be okay with leaving your pansy ass here wondering if something bad happened to you," I remarked in irritation. I really doubted that he could defend himself if someone were to fight with him. All he knew was sports and how to play a guitar. "Who the fuck knows about you?" he asked back in equal irritation. "You're a volcano about to erupt sometimes. You beat up guys, big guys at that, at school. Everyone is terrified of you." I gave one last eye roll as I smirked and headed for the passenger door. I liked that people were scared of me. I was so badass. "Where are you going?" he yelled. "You fucking have to drive, you jerk. I don't have a fucking driver's license. I'm 15 fucking years old. Why does no one believe that I'm 15 fucking years old?" I replied as I got into the passenger side of the truck and slammed the door behind me. My volume had gotten louder with each additional word. He was laughing when he got in behind the wheel, and I laughed too. I really hadn't been that angry. "You're funny," he remarked as he belted in. "You inspire me," I bantered back. I was already belted in. "You are kind of scary, though," he continued as he put the truck in gear and drove out of the parking lot. "That dick, Andrew, big fucking guy that you laid out cold last year, I don't even think I could fucking take him, and I'm twice your size, but you took him out. Right out. Right, left, knockout." I remembered all right. I was glad that it came across that way to David, and hopefully to everyone else that was watching, but I'd hurt for days after that, and there was 1 or 2 seconds that I thought he was going to take me out. Sometimes big guys are just big guys that don't know a thing about fighting, and I don't punch people because I'm mad. I punch them because they're picking on other people, and punching them is the only language they understand. Andrew was hassling the new kid. I couldn't let that happen, I replied. Maybe if someone would have protected me when I was a 5-year-old at the church cookout, that my life would have been different. Instead, I was the new kid, and all I got was teased and rocks thrown at me. All I had wanted was to fit in and play with the other kids. That's still what I wanted, but sometimes even with Kevin and David, I still seemed to fail. "Oh, so it's your job to bully all the other bullies." I glared at David in the dark cab. Yeah, I could have messed him up just for the hell of it. "I'm the law and the order of that school. Lord knows the principal can't keep it real," I muttered. I wasn't going to tell him the story of the church cookout when I was 5 years old. Every time I thought about that day, I hated it more and more for making me what I was now. I hated all the incidents that made me a bully. "You got that right," he agreed. Then he was laughing because Andrew had transferred to a different school right afterwards. "Shamed by a little girl, couldn't hold his head up after that," he laughed. "He didn't leave because of me. His dad got a job in another town, you dumbass." He was still chuckling. "Believe whatever you need to, Pumpkinhead." I shook my head and let the name-calling go. As he drove that hour drive home, I got tired of listening to him. We talked about how we wanted to be rock stars, and I was okay with that conversation, but then all he wanted to talk about was how he hated his younger brother. I sighed as I looked out the window at the darkness. Some of the roadway back home was nothing but darkness. How I'd wished growing up that I'd had a brother to tease. Meanwhile, David had 2 brothers and cousins around his age, and 2, all he ever seemed to complain about was his brother. "Are you fucking listening to me?" he asked loudly, disrupting my thoughts. I changed the radio station as it was fading out. "I can't give you any advice about your brother. I'm a fucking only child, and I don't get along with people to begin with. You can talk to Daddy tomorrow. He has advice about every fucking thing. Come over and cook dinner for us. Daddy hasn't cooked one decent meal in the past month. We've been eating nothing but popcorn for the past week," I finally said. He made a sound of disbelief. "Sometimes I don't know if you're fucking kidding or not. If you're telling the truth, then you and your dad are some of the weirdest people I know. Eating popcorn all week? Oh my God, seriously? And you think that I can talk to your dad about my problems? You really think that wouldn't be weird?" He was just rambling then. "This conversation is tiresome. Can we just shut up and listen to the V8 engine in this truck?" I asked. We'd be at his house within 15 minutes. I was more than ready to be done with him. And the truth was that Daddy liked him and Kevin, sometimes more than me. They were so much more cooperative than I'd ever been or would be, and he enjoyed their company. All he'd had was a daughter all these years. I imagine he would have liked to have had a son, too. From one comment that had slipped out one night, he worried that I'd run Kevin and David off. Yeah, that had hurt. And truth be known, sometimes I was afraid that I would too. But I was who I was. I definitely related to Leonard Skinner's song Freebird. Did you really just take your dad's truck and not tell him? Yeah, I yawned. So you coming over and cooking for us tomorrow would really smooth that over. He snorted. You're fucking something else. I guess you'd have to start cooking around 4 p.m. since we have that gig at 8 p.m. I'd really like some meatloaf and yeast rolls, enough to last a week. I really like corn too, I added. Good meatloaf was the bomb. During the rest of the ride, he told me how ridiculous and weird I was. I was glad to kick his ass out of his house. And Daddy was mad, of course. He threatened to keep me from getting a driver's license at all. He had waited up for me to make sure I got home okay. David is coming over tomorrow to cook for us, I interrupted. And he would. I knew he would. The vibe I got from him was that my life was way more interesting than his. Plus, Daddy liked him and gave him attention. He is, my dad replied with interest, instantly forgetting that he was in the middle of yelling at me. Yep, that was one way to get him off my case. What is he going to make? I hope some yeast rolls. David, I whined into the phone at 2 p.m. Come over and cook for us. We're so hungry. All we ever eat is popcorn. Yellow, who was lying on the couch, looked up at my dramatics. You poor thing, he sassed back. It's true, I insisted, and I wasn't lying. We had eaten popcorn for several days. Dad was trying to teach me a lesson that I'd better start cooking or else. My or else was David. And just what are you going to do for me, Missy? He asked back. I could hear the smugness in his voice. He was a male, so no doubt he was thinking of sexual favors. I wasn't going there. I'll let you talk to Daddy about Alan. Oh, Jesus, I'm hanging up. No, wait. I'll even let you pick out what you want to cook. We're paying for the groceries, of course. After hearing a few more minutes of blah, blah, blah from him, I finally agreed that if he would cook, then I would let him spend 15 or 20 minutes posing me as a model while he took pictures of me. And I would be cooperative and fairly happy in them. He come over and dragged me grocery shopping. It took an agonizing 20 minutes for him to finish shopping and for us to be back in his car. And that was just for one meal. It just amazed me because if it had been up to me, I could have been in and out of that store in 7 minutes tops. If I ran, I could probably chop 2 minutes off that time, but then people tended to talk if you did something like that, and talking tended to get back to my dad and Bob. Dad was still mad about me stealing his truck, and he gave me some chores to do on the ranch, which left David unsupervised in the kitchen. It was over an hour when Daddy told me to go inside and clean up, that supper was almost ready. The house smelled fantastic, but I headed upstairs to shower. When I came down, the table was set and David and my dad were talking. Hey, Bear Cub, my dad greeted as David snickered. Shut up, I growled at David. Jealous jerk. Bet your dad's pet name for you is Hey Worthless. Hey, Daddy warned. That was rude and uncalled for. I've taught you better and you know it. I'll send you to your room without supper and you'll stay there all night, missing your gig and all this great food that David made. Apologize to him now. David smiled a satisfied smile. He reached down and petted Yellow's head. Yep, all he got was positive attention from my dad. No wonder he liked the visit. You're all right, David, cooking for us and everything. I replied with a better attitude. Is that all you got? My dad asked as he gave me the look. If I were to eat something, I think I'd have more to say, I replied. I'm just so famished that I can't think. Daddy stared at me a moment, then shook his head in amazement and made me help David put the food on the table. Our house had a small dining room, and we were eating there tonight rather than in the kitchen. I couldn't remember us ever having anyone over where we ate in the dining room. Daddy had nothing but compliments for David. The yeast rolls were perfect. They were the frozen ones you just put in the oven and somehow they baked. But I didn't point that out because they were fabulous. The meatloaf was incredibly tasty, as was the scalloped potatoes and vegetable medley. And then there was hot peach pie for dessert. Daddy had a lot of conversation for David, too. He always had been easy to talk to and people connected with him. I watched and listened with interest as he bonded even more with David, and David responded. It irked me that my dad was so into him. It was like they'd forgotten I was even there in the room with them. It didn't seem like Daddy was ever that interested in anything that I did or said. Maybe I'd made a mistake in letting David and Kevin visit so much. Yeah, I was thinking that was the case, and I'd have to... What else do you have to say to this fine young man who has graciously cooked a delicious dinner for us? Daddy asked me. He had already complimented and thanked David at least twice. I put my elbows on the table and my chin in my palms as I smiled rather seductively at David. I pushed my elbows further across the table towards him. I'd seen women act that way on TV. Thank you, David. You're the best, I remarked as I gazed adoringly at him, complete with stars in my eyes. He blushed. I took a deep, dramatic breath. He really needs to talk to you about something, Daddy, I remarked as I abruptly stood up and started hurriedly gathering the dishes, something I rarely ever did. Dad's attention jerked to me. What's that supposed to mean? He asked in alarm. I took on an incredulous look. Oh, Daddy, that's for you and David to discuss. I gotta go wash these dishes. They ain't gonna wash themselves, you know, I remarked as I quickly exited the kitchen. I knew he was staring after me. I giggled inside. Yellow followed me to the kitchen where I fed him. I filled the sink with hot water and soap and put the dishes in it. Then I turned the outside light on. Yellow and I went outside where I sat on the glider and swayed back and forth while he wandered into the night. Sometime later my dad came outside. You're not funny, bear cub. I thought you were pregnant or something, he remarked to me. I'm plenty funny, Father Bear, and I'm still as pure as the new fallen snow, I replied back as I thought I sensed some deer in the distance. Good, stay that way. We'll talk about this tomorrow, but right now I need you to get back into the kitchen and wash those dishes like you said you would. Then you need to get ready to leave if you want to make it in time for your gig. I glanced up at him. He meant that about the dishes. Okay, I reluctantly agreed. David came into the kitchen with the serving dishes and started looking through the cabinets for plastic containers to store the leftovers. I directed him. He was griping at me for embarrassing him. Yeah, whatever. He wanted some excitement, and I had provided that. Your dad is really cool, he remarked. He kept talking as I washed one glass. I observed him without comment because he'd apparently had a satisfying talk with Daddy. I wondered why bonding came so easily to others. Then he frowned at me and took over washing the rest of the dishes. I sat on the counter as he finished them and wiped down the dining room table and the stove and the counters. Daddy came back into the house and nodded approvingly at the clean dishes in the drainer. Go ahead and take the truck to your gig. David can drive, he remarked. Then he looked at the dishes again and me sitting on the counter and shook his head. He'd figured out that I hadn't done the dishes, but I knew he wouldn't bust me out in front of David. You have it made, David remarked as he drove us to Greenville. We were playing at a diner that night. You don't seem to appreciate what a great dad you have, he said wistfully. He is pretty cool, I agreed. But he gets on my case just like your dad gets on yours when we're by ourselves. He's just not going to freak out on me when other people are around. He'll bust me out later on that little stunt I pulled. David went on to talk about how great my dad was and how great a life I had. Then he stopped, probably because he realized that he'd been on a roll. Your dad said that he's surprised that you haven't driven me and Kevin off, and he's worried because you don't bond with people. I jerked, immediately angry that he'd told David that. I was also angry that it was true. He and I were going to fight about that when I got home later. The only thing I permitted him talking about was my activities that I was currently involved in, not my past, not my problems, and definitely not about my attitude. He had no right to tell you that. That's our fucking business, not yours, I huffed. He doesn't know what to do with you, and he didn't have to tell me that you don't bond with people. It's fucking obvious, David continued. Wait, this chat with him was supposed to be you complaining to him about your little brother, not about what a misfit I am. It was a little of both. Get over it. He's worried about you, and he's a hell of a lot better of a dad than mine, so I don't want to fucking hear it. I'm a good kid and I do what I'm supposed to, and my dad still hates me. You don't do half of what you're supposed to, and yet your dad loves you, he about yelled. I blinked at his anger. My first response was to snap back at him, but Daddy really had taught me better, and David had a valid point. Daddy always loved me, no matter if I was an asshole or if I didn't do any of the housework he told me to do. Go on, get it out. Tell me how bad your life is. I'm listening, I made myself say to him. You didn't want to listen last night, he huffed as he rounded a corner rather fast, then braked as he realized it. You have my undivided attention right now. I tried to pay attention as he talked about so many things. He talked about crap that his brother did to him and how much he talked about me and wanted to fuck me. He told me how jealous Alan was that I was his friend and that he secretly enjoyed that. I chalked that one up in my favor because that meant that he would stay my friend regardless of what I did because it aggravated his brother. He told me how his parents had only come to see him at one of our gigs, and yet they never missed anything that Alan participated in. He said my dad wondered if I'd grow up to be a deadbeat or end up pregnant and ruin my life. He was hoping that we hadn't had sex yet and had advised David to always use condoms because even one time could get a woman pregnant. I rolled my eyes at that. Dad was quizzing my friends about sex, pressing them to see if we'd done anything sexual, and lecturing them on birth control. Wow. Wait, that was dad talk. He was being a dad to my friends. I had mixed feelings about that, but he was also pretty much saying, okay, go have protected sex. I just listened and let him talk. We were within a mile of the diner when he finally ran out of conversation. Say something, he remarked. Just FYI that my dad only has come to a handful of my gigs, David. When I ran motocross, he came to one meet the whole damn summer. Mostly he's working, and I've learned to be independent. A lot of the time he's home, but he's in the barn or out on the land doing something. He's not spending time with me. I have no relatives besides him. The kids hate me, and I've never known how to fix that except to fight with them. You ran motocross? He interrupted, missing the whole damn point. Yeah, I'd never mentioned that before, but I thought that Daddy had. That was past. I wasn't about the past. I rolled my eyes and continued. Daddy and I rarely go anywhere except to the Tractor Supply store, so yeah, there's a lot about my life that's not great either. But for the most part, my dad has been supportive of me. And, he's never quite accepted the aliens. That's really hurt me, and he doesn't believe me, I told him. He pulled in behind the diner and shut off the engine. Did you ever consider that you're fucking crazy? That you're not his kid at all? He asked seriously. Inside, I sighed in defeat. I'd explained to him and Kevin some time ago that my dad was actually my uncle, so no, I wasn't his kid. I was technically his niece. I didn't feel that I needed to repeat that. I also knew that I'd been born on the wrong planet, and I wasn't sure whose fault that was. I glared at him and slammed out of the truck. I'd caught myself before I told him to fuck off. I'd even been honest about the aliens. I'd listened to him, bared my soul, and he'd slam me in return, the asshole. I'd been honest about the aliens. Oh my God, I just couldn't believe it. I huffed thinking about it all. He tried helping me with my drum set. Just leave me the fuck alone, I growled. Kevin appeared at the back door of the diner and took in our angry faces. He began helping me unload my drum set while David went into the diner. "What are you guys fighting about?" he asked. He told me about his problems, then when I responded and bared my soul to him about mine, he slammed me. That's what our problem is. He's a fucking asshole, always pointing out my faults, I remarked as I yanked on the bottom of the one drum. Kevin quickly stopped me. "Stop, you're going to bend it. And then you're really going to be pissed. Let me do it." So I did. Once we started playing music as a band, I felt better. There was nothing like pounding out your anger on the drums, and I loved every song we played that night. Our gig was great. I was thinking that people were learning about us and coming to hear us play rather than just finding themselves somewhere where we were playing by accident. We were acquiring groupies, and I was surprised at the attention. However, I noticed that Rick was having a hard time with the guys that now gathered around us to fuss over Carol. And in turn, she wasn't happy about the girls that flocked after him. All in all, though, I was still the one that attracted the most attention. Me, a drummer. I dreaded the ride home with David. Kevin bummed a ride home with us. "Are you two still mad?" "Yeah," I replied. And "No," David replied at the same time. I stared at him. "I'm sorry," he said. "You listened to me and then I blasted you." My lips tightened in response. I just knew that Kevin had to explain to him what he'd done wrong and that he hadn't had the sense to figure it out himself. "And?" Kevin asked as he elbowed me in the side. I elbowed him back but then replied, "I'm sorry too. What I meant to tell you after you told me your problems is that I'm sorry you're going through that. I hate that your parents don't see you for the great person you are, but I also want you to know that you guys only see part of my dad. He is great, but he's also a parent, and he gets on my case just like your parents get on yours. He just does it when y'all are not around." Wow, it had burnt my lips to say that, especially the "I'm sorry" part. There was a second or two of silence, then Kevin clapped. "Oh my God, all my coaching is paying off. That was a really sincere apology. Group hug." "Shut up," I remarked in aggravation as I squirmed away from his hug. But then I snickered with them. They got into a conversation of how they were going to leave Whitmire. "I'm going with you," I replied, and I felt that that was a true statement. I also felt uneasy about it. My dad kept me sane. How could I leave him behind?